just to give a quick background on me, so I started my career with ICICI Bank. I worked there for around 7 years and worked in various verticals, right from retail banking, investment banking, and payments. And my last assignment in the bank was in payment strategy, where I led the joint venture between ICICI and First Data. And this is where I picked up my idea, actually, in terms of what's going to happen in payments in next 10 years. And frankly, at that point of time, payments slash fintech was the most dull sector. I mean, when I moved from investment banking to payments, everybody thought that I got demoted. So, but that was my conscious choice because I had got bored of investment banking and giving fluffy gyan to my clients. So, so what I did is so I always wanted to be entrepreneur. Many of us, when they grow up in their career, they want to do on their own. And I'm Marwari by community. So anyway, every Marwari guy wants to be entrepreneur anyway. So I had made almost like 50 plus ideas from 2006 to 2010, and I don't think I had courage to leave. So every time I reached closer to leaving the company, I was like, how I'm going to pay my expenses, how I'm going to meet my next month EMI. So it was like really tough decision. And one fine day, I just quit. And literally with no plans, what I'm going to do. And the whole idea, my wife freaked out, by the way. So she was like, are you sure that you're quitting or are you sacked? So I'm like, no, really, I'm quitting, and I want to come out of my comfort zone. And she was like, so how are we going to pay our EMI after 4 months? Because we had 4 months of saving. So, and somehow I comforted her that don't worry, have faith in me. And so I took 8 months of break, and in that break time, just to pay my bills, I did some amount of consulting work just to so that I can come out with an idea which I truly take it forward. But at the same time, I had to run my house. Then in that whole introspection period, I thought of that what I know the best is payments, because that was my last assignment in the bank. And when I looked at the macro factors in payments, and this is where like why I chose payments. So when I looked at the macro factors in payments, I think in my view, the next 10 years, if there's one industry which will continue to grow only one way, which is upside, that's payments. Every other industry can go here, there, and you may see some roller coaster ride. But the payments, I don't think so you will see any roller coaster ride. So it was I would say it was the safest bet I took. So I don't think so I took the bet which was any risky, because I was sure that if the macro factors are positive, and as an entrepreneur, even if you don't do well, or let's say if you do average, you will still make some, or you still create some value, and which is what I thought that value will be good enough for me. And this is how I chose payments, by the way. So the interesting story around funding, because this is where I think most of you guys must be keen that how do you get funding and how do you pitch to investors. And so I can share my story. So literally, my story was more of a fairy tale story. So I must say I got lucky. So my first funding happened from Sequoia Capital at a time when I was operating from my dining. And literally, I had no office, no employee, no technology, because I don't understand technology. I'm a CA by qualification. So, but when I happened to meet Sequoia coincidentally, I think my whole pitch to them was around what is the gap in the whole payments area and how I saw the payments area will evolve in next 10 years. And of course, what I managed to do is, so I met Sequoia after 3 months of starting the company. So what I managed to do in that time period is, in those 3 months, I had convinced 5 large banks to sign contract with me. And literally the contract of now which is slightly easier, I must say, but the contract, at that point of time, banks were wary of giving net banking connections to the independent companies because all the large guys, the big boys, CC Avenues and BillDesk and all of that was so dominant and hooked up in the banking world that there was no chance for a new guy to come in. But being a single guy, I managed to do that, and Sequoia guys were like super impressed with that. And they said, if with no money, no technology, you can do that, with money and technology, you can do much more. And that was the first bet they made. And literally the funding happened literally in 48 hours. So they met me first time, they invited me again, and then 48 hours, money was in the bank. So it was super quick. Even today, the Sequoia guys tell me that that was the fastest funding we ever did. And we don't know why we did that. So, so it was interesting journey, and I don't think so each of us or will be so lucky every time. So, but one big learning is that I don't think so funding is the only criteria why people should leave their jobs, or why people should start the business, or why people should make progress in the business. Because if you look at my case, irrespective of the funding, I had started my work. And this is what investors look for, that individually or independently, do you have the capability to pull the ship? And I mean, and funding will of course fuel the growth, but that being said, it's your capability which will pull the startup or the ship forward. So that was my big learning. Then comes the team. I think when I got the funding, the first thing I did is got an office boy as a first thing, because I was like too tired of running around for photocopies and printouts, because I did not have a printer at home and all of those things. So I did that. I got an office. My first office was literally a garage office where the front, by the way, it was an ex-InMobi office. So Naveen vacated the office, and I happened to meet Naveen when he was vacating, and I entered the office. So it was literally an office where in front of the office there was a, the bottle cap manufacturing plant. So the noise was so getting into your ears that you literally had to put curtains and many other things so that the noise doesn't travel inside and you can focus on your work. But those were the experiences which I really cherish now, frankly, because I mean, I don't think so now I can go back to that environment. I become more comfortable, and this is where I would say my risk appetite has also gone down, which is a deterrent for new innovation if one has to make. And so my big message to you guys is don't get comfortable if you want to create something. Otherwise, it's a deterrent for you. You will least likely, unless you're super lucky, least likely that you will be able to create a large business. So as far as the team is concerned, as I told you, I'm a non-tech guy. So literally the biggest challenge for me was recruiting a technology guy. So because I did not understand what kind of technologies I should build my platform, what kind of tech folk I should hire, and what to interview from a tech guy. It's not like I can talk, oh, this API should work in this fashion, or what's your view about architecture scalability, what's your view about how the infrastructure should be on AWS, or infrastructure should be dedicated environment. I had absolutely no clue back then. So, so took a leap of faith, hired, of course, Sequoia helped me interview candidates, but that was still, my paranoia prevailed. So I was so paranoid that each of my sales guys were also engineers. So literally my ops guy was engineer, my sales guy was engineer, my, of course, tech guy had to be engineer. My product guys were engineers. So I was like, except me, the whole company was made up of engineers only. And I don't think so that was a wiser decision though. But still, the thing was that I wanted to cover my blind spot completely. So I knew exactly what merchants were looking at. I knew exactly what consumer experience I wanted to deliver to the market. But as far as the tech part is concerned, that was my blind spot. So my big message to you guys is, I think as far as you know that what is that you want to deliver to the market, you don't need to worry how good a coder you are or whether you have a good tech co-founder. I mean, that's an added advantage for sure, but not the sole requirement to start a company. So that's a big learning for me. Then, and of course, I went through my own set of challenges with some wrong hirings initially, with some learnings. But what worked in our favor was quick decision making. So as soon as we realized that things were not working as we thought with the respective team members, and I must say, I was brutal. I was brutal enough because for me, that was the only asset which I had as part of my wealth. So I could not have that asset go waste. And I could not, and it was my career. So, so I was super brutal with people that if you are not passionate the way I am, then it doesn't work with me. So, so of course, we made few tough calls initially where we changed our teams at a fairly rapid speed as soon as we realized that things were not working. We were lucky to get few very good people on the tech side, on the product side. In fact, one of my number 3 guy, which I found, and I really feel grateful to him, and I always thank him whenever I meet him. Deepak Dhar is now co-founder of Nestaway. So he worked with me for 3 years, and literally he was my go-to man for everything. So for tech, for product, for operations, for customer service, anything I had a problem, I think that's the learning. In your team, you need a couple of guys with you who you can blindly, if the task is given, they can do it to the perfection without you overseeing everything. And that's also one of the learning which I had is that I think the team is very, very important. And you should not, if you have the luxury, you should not compromise in team hiring. And while initially, before the funding, the requirement of hiring should be that you hire the team which is equally passionate, so that they are if the team is passionate, they are anyway not caring about salary. They are not working for salary with you. They are working to build something along with you. And of course, you should incentivize enough. So you should not be miser enough to not give equity to them. But that at the same time, if you have the luxury, at least my initial mistake was I did not hire ahead of time. I always hired for the moment. So, and Sequoia guys always used to push me saying, Jiten, don't try to be Superman. Don't try to do everything on your own. And I'm like, no, this is my startup. I want to control product. I want to control technology. I want to control sales. And I was burnt out. Literally, I was burnt out. And this is where the big learning was hire the people. If you are anywhere sure that the product or the offering which you're building, you want to scale it up, why compromise in hiring then? Hire who can help you take the startup forward. So big learning which I had in the team hiring. And then the last one, considering the time crunch, why did I exit? If I'm still so bullish, why did I sold Citrus? So I think a couple of aspects. In terms of the fundamental aspect of our consideration point and how I see it today. First of all, I don't see for myself this as an exit. While forget the bank balance for a moment, but if you forget that, I think I'm still very, very passionate about fintech sector. And in fact, as a part of NASPA's umbrella, I'm building a consumer lending product in India, which is due to launch in first week of December, by the way. So, so you will see that will be again a game-changing product when it comes to consumer payment experience, which we are launching. But so I was so convinced that I want to continue building for next 5 years or 10 years, but my 50% of the time, every year was going in fundraising. And this is where I was like, do I enjoy this time, 50% of the time which I'm spending in fundraising? Trust me, fundraising is not a fun. People ask all sorts of questions. You have all sorts of stress while spending money. And while it looks very, very attractive when you read in Economic Times or Times of India, this guy raised $20 million, that guy raised $10 million, it is not that easy. And what you go through, what nuances at the back which happen, is very painful process. It's not an easy process. So, and especially 2015 onwards, the fundraising has become extremely difficult. Now, only the true ideas with a solid execution are getting funded. Otherwise, there are many Me Too ideas which are dying, many Me Too offerings which are not working. And this is where I think I took a call saying that if I'm not enjoying that 50% of the time, why not? And I enjoy building the product and launching better consumer payment experience. Why not I partner with someone who can fund my aspirations without me worrying about capital? And this is where I partnered with Naspers Group. The consideration factor which were going in my mind at that point of time was, very frankly, it was a big money on the table. So considering it was an all-cash deal, so that was a consideration as well, in all honesty. But at the same time, I think one of the other consideration was that I was not given an option to exit, which I actually wanted not to exit. So the alignment of interest was so much that they believed in my aspirations. I was given full free hand to operate. And this is where I also saw that Naspers has a similar aspiration and ambitions to build a largest fintech play in India. So I thought that and the way market dynamics are evolving in terms of few of the companies spending hundreds of millions of dollars in giving money into consumers' pocket, I was like, it's time that you also got to up your game. And it's like a poker table. If you are playing poker with a $10 chip or $20 chip while somebody else is playing with a $1,000 chip, you can never win. And so one has to be practical. You either need to change the table or you need to get as many chips so that you are equivalent. So, and this is where I think we took the call of partnering with a larger guy and creating a business which meets our aspiration. That's it.